In the year 1492, while 3 Spanish ships were being fitted out for a voyage west, a merchant in Nuremberg finished building a globe. It still exists. It is the oldest globe of the Earth that survives anywhere, and it is a snapshot of everything Europe believed about the world in the last moment before everything changed. No America, of course. Nobody knew. Just the long blank Atlantic between Spain and Japan. Except that the ocean is not quite blank. Out west of the Canary Islands, the mapmaker drew land, an island carefully labelled as real to him as Ireland. It does not exist. It has never existed. Ships would search for it for another 200 years. Sailors swore they saw it, standing on the horizon with clouds on its shoulders, and expeditions were still being sent out to find it in the 1700s. And the name on the label? It was named for an Irish abbot who had died 900 years before. St. Brendan's Isle. How does a monk from Kerry end up owning a phantom island on the maps of Renaissance Europe? The answer is a book, one of the strangest and best-loved books of the whole Middle Ages. A story of a real saint, a boat of leather, and a 7-year voyage through an ocean of wonders, looking for the promised land of the saints. Tonight, the white martyrdom sets sail for the horizon itself. The voyage of Brendan. Welcome back to Sleepy Saints. A small confession before we cast off. In our first 3 episodes, I've been careful to keep history and legend in separate hands. Tonight the legend is the story, a dream the Middle Ages dreamed for 700 years. And we are going to sail straight through it, and only afterward ask what it means and how much salt water is really in it. So tonight of all nights, let go of the rail. If you sleep, the curragh will carry you. That is what it's for. We begin with the man himself, because he was entirely real. Brendan was born around the year 484 on the coast of Kerry, near Tralee Bay, a generation before Columba, in the very first age of Irish Christianity. The dry annals record him. His monasteries were real, and some still stand in ruin. This is a man, not a myth. But he was a Kerryman, and that matters. He grew up where Ireland runs out, the same coast that looks out at the Skelligs, with the Atlantic filling half of everything he ever saw. Other Irish saints heard the desert calling. Brendan only ever heard the sea. Tradition places his schooling in holy hands, baptized by the Bishop Erck, and fostered, loveliest of details, by a woman, Saint Eat of Killedy, one of the great teachers of early Ireland. They say a student once asked her what God loves most, and she answered in the old style, in 3s. True faith with a pure heart, a simple life with a grateful spirit, and an open hand moved by charity. Hold on to that answer. The whole voyage is hiding inside it. He was ordained, gathered brothers, and founded monasteries, Ardfert near his birthplace, and above all Clonfert on the Shannon, around 559, a school that would teach for 1,000 years. A solid, documented, successful abbot's life. And on the highest mountain of his home peninsula, the one that bears his name to this day, Tradition says he built a cell on the summit, looked west at the empty horizon, and he did stop looking. Now the book takes the tiller. The Voyage of St. Brendan was written down in Latin long after his death, probably in the 700s or 800s, and it begins with a visitor. An old abbot named Barinthus comes to Brendan and tells him, weeping, that he has been to sea and found the land of promise of the saints, a country of light in the far west, where night never falls. Brendan chooses 14 of his monks, and on a narrow creek under that western mountain, they build the boat. The book gives the recipe like scripture, a frame of light wood, ox hides tanned in oak bark stretched over it, the seams sealed with fat, spare hides and spare fat stowed aboard, because leather boats are repaired, not saved. A currach, the same craft we've sailed twice in this series, but provisioned now for the horizon. They fast 40 days, in stretches of 3. 3 late-comer monks beg to join, and Brendan, foreseeing trouble, lets them. The story will deal with them one by one. And then they run up the little sail, and give the rudder, in the oldest Irish gesture we know, to God. What follows is 7 years, but not 7 years of a straight line. The ocean of the voyage runs in circles, and the circles run on the calendar of the church. Listen to the rhythm of it. It is the actual secret of the book. Every year, Holy Thursday finds them at an island of colossal gentle sheep, where a steward washes their feet. Every year, Easter on a smooth grey island with no grass, where, as they light their fire, the island shudders and begins to swim. It is no island. It is the back of the greatest creature of the sea. The book names him Jasconius, and every Easter, unharmed and unbothered, they return and sing the Mass of the resurrection on his back. And he holds still for them, like an old verger. Every year, Pentecost brings them to the paradise of birds, a tree by a spring, so full of white birds that the branches can hardly be seen. And one bird flies to Brendan, and its wings against the boat sound like a little bell, and it explains, with perfect medieval courtesy, what they are: spirits of the great fall, who did not rebel and yet did not stand firm. Neither devils nor angels set here between, and their sentence is to praise. And at Vespers the whole tree sings the psalm of the hour, one clear voice of 1,000 birds. And the monks sleep in the boat beneath them. And so the wheel turns year on year, Christmas with a silent community of monks whose lamps are lit each night by a flame no hand kindles. Lent at sea, Easter on the whale, Pentecost with the birds. The same holy islands, round and round, like beads on a ring. In between, the wonders, and hear how many of them shimmer strangely, as if half remembered rather than invented. A pillar of crystal standing out of the sea, so tall its top is lost, wrapped in a mesh like silver net, the water around it clear as glass, and they sail through an opening and drift a whole day in its cold light. an island of smiths, black and fireless of grass, where huge figures hurl slag from forges, and the sea steams and stinks of burning, and they row for their lives. A sea gone thick and curdled, white and slow. A day when the whole ocean beneath them turns transparent, and they look down on shoals of great creatures lying on the sand far below, like flocks in a field. And Brendan tells his frightened monks to sing the office louder. And then the strangest mercy in medieval literature. Far out on a bare rock in the open ocean, with the waves driving through him, they find a man, chained, beaten by the sea, wretched beyond wretchedness. They ask who he is, and he tells them, Judas. Not a devil, not a ghost story. Judas Iscariot himself. And then he explains, and the explanation has astonished readers for 12 centuries. This rock is not his punishment. It is his rest. On Sundays and on the great feasts, the mercy of Christ releases him here, out of the fire, into the cold, clean spray. And Brendan, the abbot of the open hand, anchors and spends the night in prayer beside him, and when the devils come at dawn to fetch him back, wins him by pleading one single extra night of ease. The Middle Ages, remember, did not do half measures on Judas. And here is its favourite adventure story pausing, mid-ocean, to show the worst man in history being handled gently. At last, past the island of an ancient hermit, fed for decades by an otter that brings him fish and firewood, I promise you that is in the text. At last, a wall of fog, 40 days at its edge, then through, and a land opens, wide and green and full of autumn fruit, under a light that never fades. They walk it for 40 days and never find the end of it. A river crosses it that they may not cross, and a shining youth meets them there, calls Brendan by name and says, "This is the land you have sought. Now load your boat with its fruit and its stones, and go home, for your last voyage is near." And Brendan goes home, and having found the promised land, the book quietly ends him. He sets his house in order, receives the sacraments, and dies among his brothers. So, what is this book? Notice what the adventure actually was. 7 years of sailing, and the route was a circle. The islands repeat, the calendar repeats. The promised land, when it comes, is reached not by better navigation, but by perseverance, by keeping the feasts, keeping the fasts, keeping on. Now describe a monastery, the same office, the same feasts, round and round, year on year, until the land of light. The voyage is the monastic life, the ocean is the world, the boat is the community, 12 men and an abbot in one fragile hide, and the horizon is the thing the Cambrai homily promised us in episode 1, the place of one's resurrection. The medieval readers copying this book by the 100, some 140 manuscripts survive, a genuine bestseller, knew perfectly well what they were reading. A dream telling the truth. And yet, those sheep islands and bird islands, a monk named de Quille, writing hard geography around the year 825, describes real islands north of Britain, full of sheep and seabirds, where Irish hermits had lived. The Faroes, all but certainly. He records Irish monks in Thule, Iceland, telling him the midsummer nights were so bright a man could pick the lice from his shirt at midnight. When the Norse first landed in Iceland, their own books say they found Irish priests already there, bells, books and croziers left behind. Real Irish boats deep in the Northern Ocean before the Vikings. So look again at the dream with the sailor's eye, a crystal pillar in cold, bright water. An island of forges hurling fire and slag into a steaming sea. A curdled, white, slow-moving sea. An iceberg, a volcano, the edge of the pack ice. Someone in that scriptorium, you begin to suspect, had talked to men who had seen these things. And the memories washed into the dream like salt. Could the boat itself have done it? In 1976, a British sailor and historian named Tim Severin decided to answer properly. He built the curragh from the book's own recipe: ash and oak, 2 miles of leather lacing, 49 ox hides tanned in oak bark, the seams dressed with wool grease, and sailed it from Brendan's own coast. Out of Tralee Bay, north by the Hebrides and the Faroes and Iceland, the old stepping-stone road. 13 months of voyaging over 2 seasons. Pack ice tore the leather off Newfoundland and they patched it at sea, as the book said to. And on the 24th of June, 1977, the Brendan ran ashore in Newfoundland. It proved no monk ever did it. It proved every monk could have. The dream, whatever else it is seaworthy. And so the island stayed on the maps, that ghost in the west, St. Brendan's Isle, surviving on serious charts into the age of Newton, hunted by expeditions out of the Canaries as late as 1721. Europe kept it there for a simple reason. For 1,000 years, nobody could quite bring themselves to erase the possibility that the monks had been right about what was over the horizon. They were in the end, just not in the way anyone expected. The real Brendan died around 577, an old man in his 90s, at his sister Briga's convent across the Shannon from Clonfert. And tradition keeps his last words, and they are the most human words in this whole series. The great Navigator, the man legend sent laughing across the ocean of wonders, turned to his sister at the end and confessed that he was afraid. "I fear that I shall journey alone," he said, "that the way will be dark. I fear the unknown country, the presence of the king, and the sentence of the judge." Even he, even the man who had, in the dream at least, already seen the far shore and carried its fruit home in a leather boat. Maybe that's why they loved the story for 700 years, not because it promised an island in the west, but because it promised this: that the last voyage, the one every single one of us makes, is made in a vessel of skin and patience that has, on good authority, survived the crossing before. Next time we go back to where Irish Christianity began, with a 16-year-old boy kidnapped by pirates and the strangest decision in Irish history, his choice to return to the land of his slavery. Patrick, the first exile. But for tonight the boat is drifting and the birds are singing vespers. If sleep is near, let it come. You're in the one story where sleeping passengers are entirely traditional. Sleep well. God keep you, and may you wake in the place of your resurrection.